So you were talking about this was so you played Harriet in a game into Ratcatchers. So uh, I want to comment on Ratcatchers for a sec because I've had a
Sure.
lot of fun playing them on a couple occasions. So yeah, Piper, I really think he should get a full stack every turn. At first, I thought he didn't need it, but after playing him a couple times, I just find out that he can get anything done on a turn. Well, he can get a lot of things done. And even when you have a bad roll and think, oh, I have to abort the plan, you look and say, no, if I also use his heroic play, I can still get it done. Another bad roll. If I use his legendary, I can still get it done this turn. And more than once, I plucked the ball off of an enemy model. I kick. So when I've played with rat catchers, I've kicked off with Piper, and I give him a full stack, and he threatens enemy models. And I've said to the opponent, I said, if you don't move that ball off of whoever is holding it right now and get it away from Piper's threat range, I will score a goal next activation. Just because I kind of I want to have a game where it feels strong, and I want to potentially give them a tip and not give them a gotcha. I mean, in a full on game, of course you're not going to uh, tell them what you're going to do next turn. In fact, that's often poor sportsmanship because you could go and do the other thing, completely lie about it. But in this case, when it's a friendly game and we're learning things and really trying to understand what these models can do, I will sometimes call my shots and say, move that ball off that model or I will score with Piper. And so what happens is that player didn't take the ball off. I think it was on Meat Hook. The ball was on Meat Hook. It was a 4-1. And I activate Piper the next activation and am able to jog toward Meat Hook. And then with his once per play, I forget what, or once per turn ability, I forget what it's called, but it's just a trait. It's his dilemma, and either he jogs toward an enemy model or they jog toward him, controlled by me. So that player decided to have me jog Piper toward him, which was the right move. And then I go in and I swing and I miss, and I say, "Oh, do I have to give up? No, I'll try again." So I swing again. I tackle the ball. He tackles back. I say, okay, well, I still have influence here. So I tackle the ball again, momentously each time, because it's on a 1 for him. And then I'm able to get another momentous result. Let's see here. Let me make sure that I'm telling that right. Yeah, Piper's a 4-6. So at that point, I had spent 3 influence and had gotten a total of 2 momentum. And what I was able to do then was use momentum to push that model away. Then I don't even bother kicking the ball. I set it down behind me, and then I use Reverie to have Skulk sprint within range of the ball, sprint past the ball, picking up the ball on the way, and shoot a goal with Reverie. So that was just great. And even though it started to fall apart at the beginning, I said, no, I can still get this done. All I have to do is push you. No, I can still get this done. All I have to do is set the ball down rather than kick it. It's a lot of fun with him. Now, when he dies, your team is pretty anemic. There's not a lot to get done when Piper is off the board. You can try to re-rack and play prevent for a little while, but he is the all-star of the team. And that's been my experience. Everybody else just kind of is a tool for him to potentially dish the ball to, potentially set up to kill somebody, because Scourge will beat the pants off somebody if he gets a chance. And Piper is good for setting that up because Piper can shove everybody wherever he wants them to be. So whether it's setting up a model or scoring a goal, Piper is just super great. Now, he has a hard time against close control models. If a model has close control and a good counterattack, they can, hold on to the ball and get away. But even still, he's got the ability to use his legendary and drag them back to you or to himself, or or uses heroic and push you back. He's got all these free ways of not free, but he's got all these extra ways of doing things that don't involve rolling. So when you get behind on, like I said, a bad roll, or if you have a situation where maybe you're behind in the game and you need to take a little extra risk, you can really get a lot of extra stuff done with him. It's just so nice.
So I've only played against Ratcatchers once. I felt like their disease mechanic really hampered my ability to do stuff, which is what it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
But I definitely felt like it was almost too hampering, like nothing got done because I couldn't ever spend anything. I definitely feel like the plot card that I had where it's like use Come On Mate for free was pretty dope. But otherwise, I mean, it was their disease mechanic sucks to play against.
And to that effect, you can also it is a double-edged sword. You can beat them over the head with it because I mean, disease plus other condition like knockdown or fire is just crippling. And
it is absolutely crippling.
Ratcatchers themselves they don't set anyone on fire, and they've got very few knockdowns. So if you can knock down or set on fire their diseased model, you get way ahead in terms of the momentum game.
Yeah, their momentum game. I mean, with them denying you the ability to spend it. I mean, there was some turns I didn't get to use it much, but I still didn't even generate that much. So there were some turns where I was just out momentumed a lot, and the guy never used Pay the Piper. Henry never used it, but I still found myself with never any of it to spend, because removing conditions became impossible otherwise. The big thing, the big thing for me is, how do morticians and Ratcatchers, work together? Because Henry said that, they're morticians that have more goal threat. I mean, do you agree that, they're similar in that they just kind of mess with you until they win, or do you feel like they have a different game, or how do you feel Henry's statement about that is? Because he knows morticians well. He plays them primarily.
Yeah, so I think if you straight up try to play the Ratcatchers just like morticians, you're going to have a bad time for the most part. I think that they don't kill nearly as well as the morticians do. Now, as he did say, the Ratcatchers do have a great goal game through Piper and his hacks. And that's really kind of the leverage is you do play sort of a controlling game as if you were doing morticians, but you have to be far more. The thing is, you have to use the ball to win the game, whereas the morticians can often get away with scoring a single goal or plucking your pocket and taking an opportunistic goal, whereas I think the Ratcatchers have to try to protect the ball more often, and that's pretty difficult for them. They don't have a lot of good control tech. They've got no close control models. They've got no unpredictable movement. They've got no good knockdowns. They do have pushes, so they can at least sometimes push away models that are trying to tackle the ball on a counterattack. They don't have a lot of good tackles. I think Piper has the only really good one, although don't quote me on that. So in some ways I do think Henry's right, because it's like, they are a lot like morticians that need to focus on the ball rather than the kill, but I think if you're trying to play them in a kill the ball style, you're just going to get run over because they don't have the hit points or the damage to stand up to to that kind of thing. And also, even though Piper has that awesome dilemma, it's always a jog toward, so you don't have the nice benefit like Obulus has where you can puppet master somebody away. Nope, it's always toward. So Sometimes they're going to be in situations where, if you jog a model toward you, it's going to kill one of yours the next activation, and that's no good. So
Yeah. Do you feel that Bonesaw has any place on this team? Because I know Graves is just garbage. But Bonesaw, I mean, I looked at him again before the cast and thinking about how he interacts with the team. I mean, he is a dedicated kicker that Piper could trigger into overdrive and make his +1 defense bonus actually happen, considering what he can do.
well, there's a certain number of things that strikers normally have. Ball defense, high defensive stats sometimes, long threat range, good tackles. Bonesaw, and it's usually good strikers have like 3 out of 4. They've got a good combination of those. And Bonesaw is kind of like one of those things short of being a strong striker. So instead, he's just kind of a middle of the road / low end striker. And I would usually rather take a model who's potentially not quite as fast and not quite as long of a threat range with the ball, but has lots of utility in other ways. Meanwhile, Jesse's trying to fall asleep over there or something.
It's another episode where my mic falls apart. It's awesome.
For the fact that these things are basically the most standard stands you can possibly get, you manage to break that thing every damn time, and I don't even see how you do it. Ever. It just happens. It's amazing.
We talk hard.
I am magic. That's all there is
You
to it.
definitely are, so...
I have a way with machinery that just breaks apart when it's around me.
It's not true, actually. I've seen it happen on multiple occasions for at least a dozen years. I mean, oh boy.
Jesse's voice is like, do you even lift, brah?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's... wow. So...
Just the power coming out of my voice. I have all the best words.
So Bonesaw... Wow.
Now I just really want to see you cosplay as Esther's. Like that's going to be the top someday.
What?
I mean, you heard me singing, goofing around earlier, so there's that. It's gonna be it'd be a shit show.
Okay. So, back to Bonesaw. I mean, the good thing about Bonesaw is that he could move up the board, and if they don't devote a way to stop him from going where he needs to go, he can make Reverie happen immediately because his sprint is 8 and his kick is 8, and he automatically gets the 5-0 then, and he can go backwards after the kick. I mean, he's got the ability to say, okay, I can do this, and he will be good, and then he will be good the rest of the game. I mean, as you were saying, that he has, he's short one of those things. When he gets his 5-0 defense, then he's up there.
Yeah, then he gets up there. So I could see some cases, and everybody, like I say with things, your mileage may vary. But when I look at it, maybe when when you're receiving with the Ratcatchers, and you've got the option for a pretty uninterrupted goal, you can use the delicious Reverie and just get him up there and jam a goal without much intervention. But the thing is, you can do that with almost everybody else in your lineup. So I really have to think about how much is he worth once he gets up to 5-0. Like, does he really become a threat at getting the ball back and jamming a goal after the first one? And I just don't think the answer is normally yes. I think he still dies to a stiff breeze at 5-0. He's got a large base, so he's easy to bind up for the most part. Now, he does have some dodge over you tricks, but that's I've never seen anybody pay for that. That's a heroic, right?
Yeah.
That is indeed a heroic.
Yeah,
get it right now.
It's so
I just realized that his base size is 50 millimeters.
Yeah.
How big is the actual model?
He's a big boy.
He's a pretty big boy.
For fuck's sake, how does this model even move on the board as a striker? Wait, because here's the thing. I was assuming that this was a 30 millimeter model, just like most models. Okay, fuck that. Like, why is he on that base size?
Well, I do appreciate that for a while it seems like what Steamforged was doing was essentially letting the sculptor make the model and then making rules for the model afterward. And they might have given the sculptor, I think it is Russ, right? Russ Charles. I think they probably give him an idea of what they want out of a model and give him some freedom. And, maybe he decided, hey, I'm going to make this tall boy, this tall bone saw e-boy. And, so he makes it, and then they look at it and say, well, for a striker, 50 millimeter model is going to get stuck in. So how do we get it out? Let's make a rule to go on the back of the card. So, I can appreciate to some extent that happening, because there's other models that you wouldn't think are 40 millimeter, like Crucibles are 40 millimeter. And
not worth it at all.
Well, yeah, right. Yeah. So let's keep that can of bees closed. But
let's.
But there's
a certain number of models where you can see where it's like they're not the typical size for their function, and it's really that I think they made a model, picked a base size for that model, and then made the rules to go and try to address that.
Yeah, I really think, like, even after I said, like, oh god, he's a 50 millimeter base, like, with the ability for Reverie and with his football dervish ability, I mean, he can really get going. I mean, he's got the ability to essentially dodge twice, if I'm making this correct.
Oh, he can, I forget how many times he can dodge. So Bonesaw is the biggest example of why you can't trust the community why you cannot trust the Guild Ball community to understand the power level of a model without getting that model on the table. Because Bonesaw was one of the first models to have rules released for Season 3. And when those rules were released with Football Dervish, people went nanners. Dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria, all the bad things. People thought,
panic.
Wow, this model's got a 26-inch threat range. The game as we know it is over. It's going to ruin the game. And it turns out nobody played him. So, and once people got him on, the board and understand what he was good at, and specifically what he's not good at, which is most things, that just, cheers, Bonesaw. You just need a little love, bruh.
I mean, yeah, he's got Slippery for the parting blows, so if he does get his offensive defensive buff up, he's a 6-0 when leaving, so maybe he's one of those guys that just needs one of those, like, can't fall over abilities, so when he's, like, running away from people, that he won't just automatically fall on his butt, because that seems like the thing that'll happen to him.
Dirty, close control, anything cool. A viable dodge, that would be great. Yeah, he's kind of missing. And I get that they tried to give him that with Football Dervish and with the dodge over models ability, but it just didn't quite give him the tools that it just... Now, obviously, people can always take him and always put him in a list and find ways to turn him on, but it's usually just another model would serve you better in more cases. But you can find corner cases where he works well, just like every model in this game. So I always want to say that, but I just personally wouldn't use him, even though I think he's really cool.
I mean, he's a guy that can go there, and I mean, he's gonna see more play than Vet Graves currently. Vet Graves is friggin' hot garbage. I can't really fathom a way of playing him. Granted, I don't play Morticians. I don't know what he does effectively, but he just doesn't do anything, because nobody I know is even attempting to utter his words.
So I think you're much more likely to get good use out of Vet Graves in Ratcatchers than you are Bonesaw. And it's been a while since I've looked at everything that Vet Graves does, just because I'm trying to get a handle on the box 6 before the box set of 6 before I start throwing in others. But like, Vet Graves does add a little bit of win condition. He does. You're not going to get mileage out of it too often, but Gravedigger does give you an extra victory point on a takeout when you get it on a model. He does have a 2-inch melee zone. His tackle isn't in a good spot, but he's got momentous results in most places. Um, Creation and Pact Master aren't going to get a lot done. Um, yeah, so he's I want to mess with him, but I'm too busy messing with the other things. He's just kind of one of those models that I've left on the cutting room floor for a while.
He's got a lot going on, but he doesn't. None of those things jump out at me and go, "Woo! I'm gonna play this guy," because I have heroic plays that do stuff with my rats.
Mm-hmm.
Boy.
I mean, about the only thing that really wants me to put him on, makes me want to put him on the board is that his both versions of his model are pretty. Like, I think he's a good-looking piece of metal.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong about that. That aside. I mean, sure, he probably looks great. Unfortunately, he is the suck.
He doesn't do all that much now.
I don't know. I can't say. I'm sure the 5 Morticians players that like him, if there are that many, are screaming at us right now.
I mean, he's got a modest kick stat. He's got 2 armor.
I mean, 2 armor is good. I mean, 2 armor is okay. I mean, I've learned that 2 armor is way worse than it is. I thought before in like playing blacksmiths, but
right. And for what it's worth, I do think the major bottleneck in the game is skill, and I think that an exceptionally good Morticians player could take Morticians or Ratcatchers player could take these quote unquote bad models, these models that we say are not as strong overall, and probably beat you over the head with them. It's really interesting to me how people can make things work, and I'm always a little surprised when I see something operate and say, oh, I've never thought about using it that way. And sometimes to good effect and sometimes to really bad effect. So I'm always open to ideas, but I personally haven't used and don't think that I will get a lot of mileage out of the Vet Graves or Bonesaw.
Yeah, I mean, there's always a way to make a model work. I mean, Jesse the one week yelled at me about my ability to complain about Midas, and he's like, play him. You can win with him. I dare you.
Yeah.
And then I won fucking 12-0 against him that week.
You did indeed.
Yep. I guess it is still possible.
It is.
You
proved it.
I proved it against a guy who's never played against Alchemist in a life. But, I mean, anybody can do it. It's just, I'm sure Alex Bots piloting that pile of junk could probably make it happen. I mean, he's making butchers happen right now, so I guess that's a feather in his cap. But, I look at Graves and I go, no, and that's what I say.
Well, when I look at, getting good at a game, it's essentially pick some models, understand them inside and out, because what's going to make you better playing again with the same team and the same models will do you better than swapping models in and out all the time. You'll just start understanding how your models play and how your matchups go. And then once you really get a grasp for that, you can start dropping some of the models and trying others and saying, oh, in this situation, model Y works better than model X. I'm going to play this forever now. Oh, I didn't realize that I was just really shooting myself in the foot by playing Chaska. Even though he goes and shoots other people in the foot, he's got, some of the most overrated abilities, like Boombox, but, hey, he'll sometimes pull off crazy things. But in my opinion, if you're loading him up, Boombox is so cool. But if you're loading up Chaska, you're getting really poor efficiency out of your influence. But I shouldn't. I digress. Chaska's for a different episode, perhaps.